Testing for YouTube. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Just making sure it's all, oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, before we start today's meeting, it is with a heavy heart and deep sadness that we start today's meeting, recognizing the passing of Helen Poon, a cherished colleague, a dear friend, and a vibrant soul who left an unforgettable mark on our community. Helen was not just a member of the Port Alberni City Council. She was a consistent voice for progress and an unwavering proponent of positive change. Her belief in the potential of our community was unparalleled, and her contributions, including her instrumental support for the acquisition of the Somas lands and several other key projects, set the course for transformational change in Port Alberni. Helen was never afraid of who was in the room or if her words would lose her votes. She spoke consistently to what she believed in, and though her comments were typically brief, her words carried weight and were impactful to her colleagues. For years, we've quoted her saying, "When we focus on everything, we focus on nothing." She repeated that over and over as a way of reminding us that in order to achieve the goals we had set out for our community, it meant we had to say no to other worthwhile initiatives. Helen was proud of the work that we did on council and her contributions that she made to the community. Outside of her professional role, Helen was a person who can only be described as iconic. She was incredibly unique, authentic, and deeply caring. But more than anything, to those of us who were fortunate to know and work with her, she was a friend we could always count on. No matter the situation, if Helen was around, we knew we'd be laughing. She was always there for her friends in difficult times, connecting with encouraging words or a funny message out of the blue when she knew somebody needed to be lifted up. Helen connected with people like nobody I've ever seen before, and she had a zest for life that enriched the lives of people around her. As we mourn the loss of such a remarkable individual who left us far too soon, let us remember how fortunate we were to have her in our lives and to have her in this community. Our deepest condolences go out to Helen's parents, her family, her friends, and all the people who knew and loved her. Please join me in a moment of silence as we remember Helen Poon. Thank you. And I'd like to offer the opportunity to Councillor Haggard to offer some remarks as well.
Thank you for those eloquent words, Mayor Minions. Please bear with me while I try and get through this. As you can see, it's been a very difficult few days of the friends and family of Helen. I first met Helen on the campaign trail in 2018 when we were both running for city council. I was immediately attracted to her energy and her zest for life, but I kept asking her, why Port Alberni? She first came to Port Alberni on a classic car tour and immediately saw how much potential this community had. She was without a doubt Port Alberni's best promoter. She invited many of her friends to come and visit Port Alberni, and they did come, and they did love Port Alberni. Everywhere she went, she handed out our strategic plan, which she truly believed in. It was an honor to work with her. When you're first elected to city council, it is a huge learning curve and very overwhelming. You have to make big decisions that affect your community. For many months, right before a council meeting, we would look at each other and say, what did we get ourselves into? Then we'd have a laugh and walk into council chambers together. What many people do not know is she had a big heart. She helped many people without fanfare or expecting anything in return. I always knew that if I needed anything, Helen would be there for me. The one word that I've heard to describe Helen is iconic. That is the one word that best describes her. There will never, ever be another Helen Boone. I'd like to offer my condolences to her friends and family, and I hope they will find some comfort in knowing that she will always be remembered. Godspeed, my friend.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order our regular meeting of council and start by acknowledging that we're meeting today on the unceded traditional territories of the Sajat and Hupachasit First Nations. We do have an agenda in front of us. Are there any late items to add from council? Seeing none, any late items from our corporate officer?
No late items, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would somebody like to move approval of our agenda? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. All in favor? Carried, none opposed. We'll now move on to the mayor's annual address. On behalf of council for the city of Port Alberni, I'm happy to begin our meeting today with our annual address as we embark on another exciting year in our community. I'd like to first acknowledge that we're holding our meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Hupachasit and Sajat First Nations. A big thank you to Chief Brandy Lauder and Chief Ken Watts, as well as Hupachasit and Sajat's councils for their continued leadership and genuine relationships we are fortunate enough to have built. To council, it's been a wonderful year getting to know each of you better. I've enjoyed working alongside each of you as we continue to work together to lead this community and build an even more amazing place to live, work, and play. 2023 was a year of significant progress, capped off by our recent announcement naming Matthews West as the development partner for the Somas Lands redevelopment. When the Somas site was acquired, the city made a commitment to achieve the highest and best use of these lands, recognizing the significant potential that they offer in building a vibrant waterfront for our community to enjoy. Much progress has been made on the site to date, with demolition underway and significant work completed on remediation as well. Matthews West will soon begin their master planning process for the site, and we look forward to working with the community members, Sajat and Hupachasit, as we build a more formal vision for this critical property. The review and update of our official community plan is underway, and we'll set out a 20-year vision for our community. It's been 15 years since we had a new OCP, and much has changed in our community in that time and in the potential of our community in that time. Throughout 2024, there will be extensive community engagement opportunities, and we hope to release the official community plan by the end of the year. Please help us ensure that this plan represents the Port Alberni we all want to see by engaging with us as much as possible throughout the process. As we begin to chart the course through the economic currents of 2024, the city is poised to build on the momentum we experienced in 2023 and capitalize on investment opportunities, job development, and growing the economy. Our 5-year financial plan and 5-year strategic plans were both adopted in April and set us on a path of fiscal prudence and strategic objectives that will guide us into the future. It also carves out funding for important capital projects like the completion of the Key to Key Path, a new multi-use childcare centre, several affordable and supportive housing projects, and the important work of separating our sewer and stormwater systems. I would like to thank our staff at the City of Port Alberni for their hard work and their really incredible leadership in taking significant steps forward in achieving the city's strategic vision this year, all while continuing to deliver the quality programs and services that our residents expect. In 2023, we saw the completion of 20 temporary modular housing pods at the Tiny Home Village, a significant milestone that provides housing, secure, safe, and affordable housing to some of our most vulnerable community members. We also saw the opening of new affordable seniors housing development at Rainbow Gardens that will ensure our seniors are able to age in place in the community they love. We were proud to also support the creation of new second stage housing for women and children fleeing abusive relationships with the donation of land to a project led by Sage Haven. We're grateful for the support of our partner agencies, BC Housing, our wonderful MLA and MPs, Josie Osborne and Gord Johns, for their advocacy, and the provincial and federal governments for making these projects a reality. While there's so much to be grateful for this year, there was also much challenge, with the Cameron Bluffs fire and subsequent Highway 4 closure topping that list. We know that this created significant challenge for local businesses, people needing to travel for medical purposes, and our entire community in one way or another. I would like to thank the community for their resilience and their perseverance through these challenges. At this year's UBCM, I met with Premier Eby and the Minister of Transportation to discuss the urgent need for improvements to Highway 4, as well as a dedicated emergency detour route. Connectivity between our island communities is essential for our residents to access jobs, healthcare, schools, visit friends and loved ones. And I think we all saw again on Christmas how lack of connectivity can really create challenges in our lives. On behalf of Council, we will continue to press the provincial government and our partners to improve solutions and continue to work on an emergency route out of our community. The coming years will be a time of transformation for Port Alberni. As new faces and families appear, it's easy to resist change and hold on to what's familiar. But as our community grows, so do our opportunities. As we close out 2023 and move into 2024, let us embrace change, celebrate our successes, and believe in the potential that exists in our community. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is our adoption of minutes, and we have minutes from the special meeting held at 11:30 a.m. and the regular meeting held at 2 p.m. on December 11th. Would somebody like to move adoption? Moved by Councillor Patola, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor. Carried, none opposed. We have no delegations, so we'll move on to unfinished business. And the first item is the resolution tracking summary. I'm going to pass this to the Director of Corporate Services to review.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, this report summarizes all of the motions that were passed by Council in the year 2023. It outlines what the motions were, what actions were taken, what's been completed, and as well as the motions that remain outstanding. And the ones that are outstanding, there's a number of resolutions that Corporate Services is inquiring about having Council rescind them at this time. Sometimes new information is received or Council ends up going in a different way if there's a new grant opportunity and things like that, which makes some of the motions perhaps no longer required. So the first motion is to receive the summary of the 2023 Council resolutions to December 31st, 2023, and then a list of motions that could be rescinded. And you could, the mover could probably pass that as written if you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, before we read motions, are there any items here on the list that we'd like prior discussion on whether they're still relevant or if we'd like to rescind them? Councillor Patola and then Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to the rest of Council for the purpose of discussion. I wonder if the best procedure is to rescind, and I'm not questioning the knowledge and wisdom of the corporate officer, but I'm just wondering if we rescind them, does that mean they no longer exist, so that they're no longer then referred to the process it's referred to? I would think that the appropriate motion would be not to rescind, for example, just for sake of example, the first one, that Council directs staff to prepare a report expanding on the Municipal Natural Assets Initiative. That was to be referred to the OCP process. So it just seems to me that the motion should be to refer that to the OCP process as opposed to rescind it, because then it doesn't exist and we're just trusting, and on good word, that it will be part of the OCP process, but this directly requires it to be part of the OCP process if that's the motion we make.
Thank you. Wondering if our corporate officer could reply to that. And I guess the question really is, do we lose our ability to track what steps we took, even if it's not relevant to this? Thanks.
Thank you. Through the mayor. Council has the opportunity to leave any of the motions as outstanding, and the action would be that we referred it to whichever committee it needs to go to, or whichever process it needs to go to, and then we would mark it as completed. Sometimes the individual motions are simply replaced by something else, newer opportunities, and this is sort of putting our best foot forward as to which ones we may think could be rescinded, but certainly we don't have to rescind them. If we rescind them, it does mean that that particular motion is no longer open.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In reading them, it seems to me that the only one that, in my knowledge, could be rescinded because it has been dealt with a further motion was that council directs staff to consider incorporating, the skate park one. The council directs staff to prepare a report outlining potential opportunities for the city to support the proposed adventure sport park. That's already by motion been moved to the master planning process, which, given that we're in that process now, I think is appropriate. These other ones that are suggested that will be dealt with through master planning or OCP, I fully support them being moved to those processes, but again, I'm still concerned that if we rescind the motion, then it's not specifically included. Those are my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to Resolution 23221 that states council directs staff to prepare a report exploring the community implications of decriminalization and options to keep city public spaces safe for use of all community members. It says rescind due to new provincial legislation addressed at this issue. That legislation has been put on pause until March 31st, so I would like to leave this one open until that time.
Okay. Councillor Patola, did you want to give specific alternative direction to any of these? Because one option is that we could receive the summary, and then for the second, we could go through each of these individually so that, I mean, it takes a bit longer, but at least we get to have a discussion on if there's a different action that should be taken. Okay, Councillor Dame, and then.
Yeah, no, that sounds like an excellent suggestion, Madam Mayor. And my only suggestion when we actually go through each one of them, it's a little bit lengthy, but in the material, the report today, it has a column that says rescind / referred to OCP process. I would just say that the motion should be that the motion that exists, R23-4, should be referred to the OCP process, is how I would word it. If I have to say that for everyone, I'm content to, because it's fairly short. Thank you.
I think we absolutely, if we wanted to read it that way, could just read it that way without having to go through each one, because I think it's a good point. Councillor Dame.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just wondering, in response to that point, if maybe what we're looking for is some way of formally making sure that in spirit each of these things are followed through on, rather than just included in an existing process. Is that am I correct? You want to make sure that the spirit of these intents by council are followed through on in some way that we can follow up on. So rescinding would be part of the legal process of saying this is no longer relevant. It's a part of a new process. So maybe we could just add to it that we would like a record kept of the rescinded motions in order to see where they fall into the proper processes.
Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Councillor Dame, through Madam Mayor, to explain further. So if we rescind a motion, that motion no longer exists. Most of these motions, not all of them, but in the aggregate, they tend to be motions of specificity with regards to a general process. So, for example, R2329 concerns alternative park space in Westport Place. Now, we are drafting a Parks Master Plan. Parks Master Plan may or may not include a park in Westport Place, but for the motion of council that requires staff to consider a park in Westport Place. So by rescinding it, staff may or may not include that. Likely they would, because they're all quite capable, intelligent, and would include all those options in the city planning. But if council was concerned enough at one point to make a motion directing staff to do it, by rescinding it, we're saying, well, we're not that concerned anymore. By simply referring it officially to the Parks Master Plan, all we're saying is that the administrative process that we've approved of master planning shall continue. Just make sure you include a paragraph or consideration of the park in Westport Place.
Thank you. With all that, would somebody like to move receipt of the 2023 council resolutions? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Now, I'm going to just ask that we go through them one by one. I think that's simpler. I think my personal comment would be, I don't love the wording of rescind, because I think it's not the true action that we're taking. So while some of these, there could be ones that are potentially just not important to us anymore. I think most of them are important. We just want to see them go through a different process. So I've got the chart in front of me, and I think most of council probably does as well. Councillor Patola, do you want to start by reading the first one? And if you want to read it as rescind, or rather drop the rescind and refer to OCP process, I think that's fine as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that R23-4 be referred to the OCP process.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Dame. Any comments? Councillor Mealy.
Sorry, just a question then. Has it not already been referred to the OCP process? And thus making this motion, okay, so it has already, so. I just want to be, just want to be clear.
So have all of these already gone through the steps that are next to rescind? I guess I'm not completely clear on why we're rescinding them rather than marking them completed if we've referred them.
Through the mayor, yeah. So all the actions beside the word rescind is because they've all been referred to a different process other than bringing them back to council individually, or because they're falling under new legislation that's come through. Certainly, we don't need to rescind any of these if that's because we could mark it completed, and the action could be that staff have referred this to, for example, the OCP process.
Yeah, I think I would be more comfortable with that process as well, unless there's anything in here that council looks at and feels is not sufficient with the steps that have been taken. And we do have a motion on the floor, so we'll have to withdraw that one, I guess, possibly, or we can vote on it. But Councillor Mealy and then Councillor Haggard.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Madam Mayor. That was just really my question. We're making a motion to refer it, just this one, to the OCP process, but it's already been referred. So that's kind of where my confusion is on this. The action's already in process, and I understand, we want to keep these motions from council on the forefront, and they are listed in this public document. So, we can print that out and have that as well. But that was just my concern, is that we're making a motion to refer to the OCP, but it's already been done. That was my.
Thank you, and I think that makes sense as long as council is satisfied with the steps that have been taken in marking these complete, and that we're not going to receive back a specific report on these, but rather they'll come as other parts of reports or referred to the budget process, whatever is listed. If there's anything that council is not satisfied with, then we will have a conversation about those right now. Councillor Haggard, did you have one to add?
Yes, I just want to ensure that the 221 is going to be kept open until March 31st. So don't mark that as complete.
Thank you. Okay. So we do have a motion on the floor. Is it acceptable in our list of processes that we just got on our desk today to have that withdrawn. I haven't read through it again yet.
Through the mayor, the mover can withdraw his motion.
Thank you, mover.
Madam Mayor, so withdrawn.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Haggard.
Before we move on, I would just like to make a comment about Resolution 23-42. That's council directs staff to prepare a letter to Western Forest Products in support of the continued operation of the Alberni Pacific Division sawmill. And that was dated February 14th, 2023, just shortly after the closure, and that was not completed. So the CEO and the corporate officer were not here at that time, so you will escape my wrath for today. But I just wanted to say I'm very disappointed that was not completed. We're working very hard to bring different industries into our community. However, forestry is still an important part of our economic base in our community. So I was extremely disappointed when I read that that letter was not written. And I don't know the reason for it, but anyway, I'll let it go. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to staff reports. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the spirit of Councillor Solda behind me, I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated January 8th, 2024 be received and checks numbered 154086 to 154181 inclusive and payments of accounts totaling $3,045,122.94 be approved.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Patola. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. No bylaws. We'll move on to correspondence for action. And we have one item here from the Alberni Valley Community Forest, and that is a letter dated December 19th requesting council support for their selection of the 2023 community donation, and that is to the Mariners Heritage Society, and that's $10,000. Councillor Mealy, would you like to read that one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the council support the recommendation from the Alberni Valley Community Forest Corporation to provide a donation to the Mariners Heritage Society in the amount of $10,000 towards the upgrade of the iconic lighthouse on the Alberni waterfront.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And just for the public's awareness, the community forest generates dividends every year and pays them to the city as their sole shareholder. However, we use those for larger initiatives in the city, most notably the Somas lands, about $2 million of those funds. However, the Community Forest Board also holds back $10,000 and gives that out to a community organization each year. And this year it is a fantastic cause that we all wanted to see improved. On to proclamations. Item number 1 is a letter dated December 27th requesting that the month of January 2024 be proclaimed as Crime Stoppers Month in Port Alberni. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move that council on behalf of the Central Vancouver Island Crime Stoppers proclaim the month of January 2024 as Crime Stoppers Month in Port Alberni.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. And the second item is from a letter dated December 31st requesting that the week of February 4th to February 10th, 2024 be proclaimed as White Cane Week. And this is a letter from the Alberni Valley chapter, the Canadian Council of the Blind. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move that council on behalf of the Alberni Valley chapter, Canadian Council of the Blind proclaim the week of February 4th to the 10th, 2024 as White Cane Week in Port Alberni.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Patola. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. On to correspondence for information, and I will go to our corporate officer for this long list.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I'll just read it word for word. Correspondence summary A, Contract Management Committee Secretariat regarding the 12th Pension Panel Report 2023 Police Service Agreement. B, from the Ministry of Forests, Pest Management Plan for Southern and Coastal BC. C, Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions and Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, follow-up letters regarding 2023 UBCM convention meeting. D, Union of British Columbia Municipalities Community Works Fund payment. E, Office of the Minister of Housing, new legislation to support local government housing initiatives. F, Island Health is the 2022-2023 annual report with a link attached. G is Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, Indigenous Engagement Requirements Funding Program. H is the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, expansion of the Integrated Major Crime Services. I, City of Abashiri, season's greetings. J, Ministry of Housing, funding allocation announcement for local government housing initiative support. K, the Office of the Lieutenant Governor of BC with the 2023 year-end report. L is the Island Rail Corporation, December 14th press release. M, the British Columbia Lottery Corporation, 2022-2023 Winning with Purpose annual report. And Pacific Rim School District, public consultation of the proposed sale of 3816 Anderson Avenue. O, Central Vancouver Island Crime Stoppers program information. P, BC Hydro regreening grants. And Q, the Advisory Planning Committee minutes of October 19th, 2023.
Thank you. Any items from the correspondence list councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are 4 items on that list that I have questions that perhaps either Mr. CAO or Madam Corporate Officer could answer. And so through you, I was quite interested in reading A, the Contract Management Committee's Secretariat, quite a lengthy report. And from it, I gather that because someone has negotiated on our behalf that city employees who work with the RCMP will no longer be part of the RCMP pensions plan. We will now have to pay that pension plan separately, and the RCMP pension plan is going up because they will suffer a shortfall by having individuals removed. So now we're going to be paying twice. I'm wondering if that is an accurate representation of the situation, although it's quite a summary. And if it is, are there any options available to City Council to try to save some of that money? Although I'm doubtful that that would be answered in the affirmative.
Thank you. I'll go to our CAO.
Thank you for the question. I don't really have an answer for you. I skimmed through the report. That was the conclusion I came to. But to give you a factual upfront answer, I couldn't do that today. So I can get back to you on this, but I don't have an answer for today.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I mean, it's all going to come out in the budgeting process because we'll see what the increase is. I'm just noting that that's going to be one of them that's out of our control. H, the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, the expansion of the Integrated Major Crime Services. Again, wondering if any of staff is aware of what the financial implications of expanding that service might be.
Through the chair, I read but I haven't digested it as of yet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the same question is with regards to O, and I'm quite content that the budget may not have been addressed and it will be part of our budgeting process. But with the amalgamation of the Vancouver Island Crime Stoppers, will that have a positive or negative effect on our budgeting process? And again, I'm content to wait for the budgeting process.
Through the chair, on that one, we are going to be reaching out as it has some implications here. We don't know if they're positive, negative at this time, but we believe it'll be in the positive. As I understand it, is they were having problems here finding volunteers. So by doing this, it would meet the intent of what the letter was saying.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And finally, Madam Mayor, I'm interested in the letter entitled J from the Ministry of Housing Funding Allocation Announcement for Local Government. I see that we've been granted $200 and some thousand for the purposes of completing the new legislative requirements that are of a greater intensity or more strenuous than in the past they have been. I'm wondering if staff can provide any insights as to whether or not the amount of funding we've received is anywhere appropriate for the amount of staff time and consequently budgetary dollars that will be expended in meeting those requirements.
CEO.
Through the chair, and thank you for the question. It was actually more than we were expecting to receive. However, we don't have firm prices on the full application yet, which we'll be working on in the coming months, and we'll be reporting back to you if we do need more.
Thank you. Other items of correspondence from council? Okay, seeing none. No report from in camera, so we'll move on to council reports. Are there any items from council reports councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If it's convenient with the chair, I would like to read my report. Thank you. I'm just getting to my report because it's way down at page 165. Thank you, 166. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wrote this report because of the situation that was described therein, and having this one conversation with one individual in the community, I thought to myself, well, where there's one, there must be two, or maybe even 10. So even though this was an individual incident, I thought it may be relevant to other members of the city of Port Alberni, and thus I write. Since our last meeting, I have not been involved in any formal events for the city. However, my councillor duties continued with many informal discussions with members of the public. And it's on the topic of individual conversations that I should like to report. Recently, council voted to send a letter to Prime Minister Trudeau calling for the Canadian government to call for a ceasefire in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. My paraphrase. In response, a good friend of mine reached out with their concerns, and we had a meaningful discussion about how such a statement reflects on the individual residents of the city. For anonymity's sake, I shall refer to my friend as Freddie. Freddie was upset that council would make a statement on their behalf, representing them as an individual, when that statement was not one that they themselves would make. A situation which may be characterized in a number of ways, ranging from, "You're putting words in my mouth," through to, "You are not representing me, therefore you are failing in your duty as my representative," with many variations in between. Just for context, the logical reasoning that caused Freddie to disagree with the council's motion was that it implied that by asking for a ceasefire, council was choosing sides in an international conflict, which was not within our legislative jurisdiction and was essentially condoning the actions of Hamas. That was the message that Freddie did not want anyone making on their behalf. Thus, today, my council report is directed at identifying who is speaking for whom. 1, does council speak for each citizen in the city? I'll say now individually. Absolutely not, in my opinion. Being that I personally was elected with the least number of votes of any one of my fellow councillors, I can safely say that there is a large portion of Port Alberni who may not agree with my actions or intentions. I clearly am not always speaking in accordance with them and therefore for them. However, I am still obligated to be representing their best interests. 2, council is like a choir. We speak together and we speak independently at different times in the process. We each have opportunities to speak independently at council meetings, and we each respect each other's opportunity to sing a solo. Yet all of our individual voices are, by agreement, harmonized together so that in the final result, council speaks as one. On the most part, I've observed this council to be very conscious of not imputing our individual statements to all of council. but also of being bound by council's statements when council decides together. 3, council is only a choir. This is not a solo performance. No one individual councillor has the right, ability, or authority to act or speak on behalf of the city council unless council has agreed to give them that right. As an aside, and for no other reason than clarity, I will point out that for those who may not know, that this also includes the mayor, not suggesting whatsoever that our mayor has done anything in contrary to this. So to conclude, it is important to identify who is speaking. No one speaks for city council, as city council can only speak together as one voice. That is a voice that represents the city as a collective whole and not each individual that makes up the city. Each individual has their own voice to use, and I encourage them to do so within the limits as set out in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and are justifiable in a free and democratic society. With respect to myself, I am not speaking for anyone else, ever. Even when I stumble and use an incorrect pronoun such as we. However, I trust the words I speak to you are valuable, meaningful, and may be agreeable to you in the hopes of improving our world. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to anything in their reports or anything outside? Okay, seeing none, then I will move that we receive council and regional district reports. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We'll move on to new business. Item number 1, Personnel Standing Committee. We have a notice of motion from December 11th, and I think that this was Councillor Patola for the notice of motion.
This was defer, refer conversation.
Yes, correct, it was. But Councillor Patola put it on the table.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I did, and that was a whole month ago. I don't know where my keys are right now. I believe this was referred from that meeting, and unfortunately, the motion doesn't seem to be included. Postponed from that meeting. It was moved in one way or another from that meeting, and it doesn't seem to be included here for me to read, and I don't have it at my fingertips, I'm afraid. I think it was
I'll grab it in a second.
simply asking
So
for
this was
further
about-
information from administration with regards to the Personnel Standing Committee being either administrative or oh, is that the actual wording? Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, there it is. There it is, the actual wording. That we ask staff to provide a report regarding the potential for the Personnel Standing Committee's mandate, basically just a review of our existing policy, and highlight the advantages or disadvantages of it being a council committee or an administrative committee. Given that most of the work of that Personnel Standing Committee tends to be administrative, and there may be more efficient ways of designing that committee. So the issue had been raised as a possible area of refinement by staff, and this is the motion that came from that.
Did you want to read the motion?
I guess I could do that. Thank you. Madam Mayor, I move that council direct staff to provide a report outlining the potentials for the Personnel Standing Committee mandate and the advantage and disadvantages of it being either a council committee or an administrative committee.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Comments? Councillor Haggard.
There was some discussion about the mayor or designate of the mayor still remain on the committee, even if it becomes an administrative committee. We thought it was important that the council still be involved.
Okay, thank you. So the intent of this motion is not to make a decision, but rather to get a report on more information about the committee as it stands currently and as it could look in the future. Okay, everyone clear on that? Seeing no additional comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And item number 2, we have deputy mayor and council appointments, and my apologies for not being here for our regional district and everything else conversation at our last meeting. Would somebody like to make the motion and then we can discuss, Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the 2024 deputy mayor appointments to committees and council representative to public bodies, commissions, and select committees be approved as circulated.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patola. Thank you. So council, since I wasn't here last time, I'll just start by adding my comments. So when I was first elected mayor, I started a process of changing out the second director on the regional district. Largely that was as a result of my own time as a councillor. My own time as a councillor, and really feeling that there was this whole other government that exists alongside our own government that I really didn't have an understanding of because I never had an opportunity to act as a board member on the regional district board. I felt like there was a lot that was so critically important to us that members of our council didn't get to understand because the two representatives we had at the regional district in the 4 years that I served as a councillor remained the same. So when I got elected mayor, I started swapping out every single year the directors. And while that, I think, gave our council a great understanding of that level of government, how they operated and how they were very different from ours, but just understanding of how we could work together, I also found it created some challenges, mostly on the regional district side, because we were kind of in a constant state of retraining and trying to bring people up to steam. That said, I do think that overall the practice is valuable still, and I think that there are some people here who have gotten experience at different times or different levels of knowledge at different times with the regional district. So I don't think that our current council has the same challenge that our last one had, where we were largely a brand new council without an understanding of that government. For that reason, I would like to keep the appointments this year as myself and Councillor Haggard. Councillor Haggard is currently the vice chair of the regional district and taking on a larger and larger role there on a regular basis. Myself, I would possibly like to swap out after one more year of serving on the regional district board. However, I think that this year, consistency, and even consistency in our alternate, being Councillor Patola, is important because we have some very large initiatives we're working on at the regional district. The new aquatic center obviously being the main one, but additional to that, we're working on some larger initiatives around physician attraction and healthcare challenges in the community as it is. I think that having that consistency and having two directors there that are completely up to speed on those initiatives will serve us well this year. That said, going forward, I think there could be value in Councillor Haggard potentially being our consistent person on the regional district, especially if she possibly moves into a chair role, which we know is possible with our current chair's other commitments and a possibility that he may not want to serve multiple years going forward. And that I would give up my seat after another year and let a member of our council take over. I think that one more year for the two of us to share that role, and Councillor Patola has been a really active alternate in that sense as well, so he's quite informed when he needs to attend meetings. I think that would get us through all of the, not through the pool, but through some really critical stages of the aquatic center planning and a couple other initiatives that we're working on as well. And at that point, we would be able to continue with that practice of rotation and transferring. So that's my preference, and I will leave it to other councillors to add thoughts. Councillor Haggard and then Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say this is my second year as vice chair, and I'm really trying to integrate myself into the success of the regional district. I'm also chair of the Alberni Valley and Banfield Services Committee, chair of the Aquatic Advisory Committee, and I'm involved in the Inclusive Governments Committee and the Rail Corridor Committee, and as Shari just mentioned, the Regional Healthcare of Doctor Recruitment and Retention. So Shari was very correct in saying learning is very important, but also as we are the largest stakeholder in the regional district, we need some consistency and to be really involved in their programs and their committees. Thank you.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I totally agree. I think we need consistency and continuity here. I also look at this council and I think that anybody else could fit in those chairs as well. Councillor Dames picks up stuff really well. We have a former mayor over there and former councillor that's been at those meetings. So, but I know I would love to see, especially Councillor Haggard, continue on as vice president or vice chair, and have continuity and the same message from the city. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, just say a few words because I raised it at the last meeting. I just really feel that we benefit a lot more by regular exposure and interaction with the rest of the people who are elected to seats on the regional district. So I beg to differ and very respectfully, respect the hard work that our current representatives have done. But I feel that everybody in this seat is equally capable. And I just feel our community benefits more by being exposed on a rotational basis to that. So for that reason, I'll be voting against it, but I'll do it with all the respect accorded to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Okay, Councillor Haggard.
One other point that was brought up was the Port Alberni Port Authority Dry Dock Committee. Now, I know the dry dock is still very active, but I think Councillor Douglas is right. The committee has not been active for 2 years now. So I would suggest that maybe staff contact the Port Authority and maybe ask if there's still a need for a representative on that committee.
Thank you. I would add that we should ask why the committee hasn't been active, because if the initiative is still being pursued, the intent of that committee was to bring voices of the community to the project and ensure that if the project does end up funded by the community, that it is in a way that suits the community. So I have questioned over the last couple of years why involvement of the committee was put on hold, and additional to asking if they still need a representative, I think we should ask that if they're still talking about the project, that we'd like to be engaged in those conversations and that the committee should continue to be active. Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, thanks to Councillor Haggard for raising that. There's a couple of minor things in there that I was going to suggest we could alter, with your consideration. One is that you're the member of the SWACN Public Advisory Group, which I've represented at a number of times. I was going to suggest I could take that on if we chose to, give up the seat on the Port Authority Dry Dock Committee. Having said that, if we have 2 seats on that committee, even though it really doesn't exist at this moment, I'm not sure it'd be wise to give them up. I think more likely go the route as to what's happening with the committee and retain those 2 seats. But I did want to mention the forestry aspect there. If you wanted to relieve yourself, I'd be happy to take that on. Thanks.
Thank you. I would be happy to have you take that one on. So I will, let's see, have we made a motion? Yes, we have. So I will suggest an amendment to move the Sawayak Public Advisory Group representative from myself to Councillor Douglas. If there's a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Dame. On the amendment, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And thank you for your work on that committee so far. And I would agree that we shouldn't make any changes to the representatives for the Dry Dock Committee, but reach out and ask that it be reactivated unless the project is currently not being moved forward in the community, but I believe it is. Okay, are there any further questions or comments on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, on the motion as amended, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 3, we have Committee of the Whole, and I believe this is from Councillor Patola.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll make the motion and then we can discuss it. I move that council direct staff to add a Committee of the Whole meeting on September the 16th, 2024 at 6 p.m.
Moved by Councillor Patola, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Speaking to the motion, the whereas is pretty much set it out. It seems that there's a very large gap in our agenda or our meeting schedule for a COW meeting that goes for about 3 months between July 15th and October 21st. Initially, I'd identified September the 23rd to be an appropriate time, but that happens to be in the middle of UBCM, so nobody will come. So, hang on a second. Hang on, as I read this, sorry, it's the 16th is the middle of UBCM, and I had submitted a different text for this, where the meeting for the additional Cal meeting was September the 3rd, I believe, which is the Monday.
I think we can accept that as a friendly amendment if that's the correct date.
Yes. It just seemed like it was a long time to go without having input from the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Through the chair, can you just give me 1 second to look up the email to make sure it was the 3rd, just so we can get the minutes right?
Okay, it looks like the 3rd is correct. Any other comments on that meeting? Councillor Dame.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to voice my support for this. As we've made changes to our meetings and our bylaws, we've made it clear that our intention was to also not limit the opportunities for the public to engage. And so I think it's important that we provide those opportunities. And so I support adding more Cal meetings.
Thank you. Great. And I think just important to note as well that council outside of this formal process does have the ability to add regular meetings, CALs, or any other meetings anytime we want. There's some process, of course, around that laid out in our procedures bylaw, but I think you're right. This is just a good one to plan to have. So, thank you. With that, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And item number 4, electronic devices by city councillors. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll start by reading the first of 3 resolutions. I move that council direct staff to, sorry, that should read administration more appropriately. Council direct administration to obtain and provide cell phones for each member of Port Alberni City Council as requested, including a service plan which provides voice, text, data, email, and internet applications.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Patola. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Dame. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this is simply to better comply with FOI legislation. Our current policy directs that we're provided with iPads solely, or I think there's a reference to Blackberries as well. So the policy is somewhat dated, although the policy seems to anticipate that there may be individuals who work off of a handheld better than off of a portable device, or perhaps both. And I noted that there was an incident that arose that illustrated that preference or ability in real time, and it made it difficult for all of council to be on an equal footing in communication. So I saw that perhaps having the option for cell phones might resolve that. I don't necessarily bring that forward as saying we should all get one and all get the best one, but that simply those options be provided. And that's why the second motion is for updating that policy.
Thank you. And I will just voice my support for this. And I believe our policy already says the mayor gets a cell phone. So I do have a city cell phone. But for the rest of you, I think it's really important if you don't have a device that is kind of able to keep everything separate to have one. And I remember talking with the mayor of another community like early on when I got elected on council. And he said, our municipality has a policy, absolutely no municipal emails on personal devices. And so that was like 8 years ago. And I remember thinking, wow, like we don't have that. So we still get to use our personal devices. I think we are very much better off for a lot of reasons, having the ability to separate our personal from our work, including for text messages and everything else. So I think this policy will, or this step will move us forward into probably where we should have already been. And the cost of having a cell phone on a group plan is very minimal in the grand scheme of things. So this will be good practice. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate this, and I do appreciate Councilor Patola bringing this forward. It is something that I have an issue with myself, and I've said that since day one, that I'm probably going to have to get another cell phone. However, I must say that if the city's going to provide to a councillor, I'm going to suggest it's going to be a certain type of phone with a certain type of plan, anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000 a year. If it's $1,000 phone, and say even $80 a month, I'm not comfortable with that. And so I would appreciate the ability to purchase a cell phone on the secondary market, get a SIM card, and do it myself. I get paid by the community every 2 weeks, and I believe that I can fit that into my own personal budget, into having, going out and getting a $200 cell phone and doing it myself. So as long as that is within the spirit of it, I'm okay with this. But to have the city to provide me a phone, I think I can still do it myself for cheaper. That's all it is.
Thank you. The city does provide cell phones to some members of our staff already, so this is something that we already do. We're just not doing it for members of council. And those cell phones do get reused, and so that's an important thing to note. If the city purchases an iPhone, and then, at the end of the term, or for instance, when a staff member leaves, that phone is repurposed to someone else. They remain our devices, or remain the devices of the city. So while it could be an upfront cost, it is, I would say, I think we want to make sure we're getting a device that works and suits to be able to use it functionally. Councillor Mealy.
I apologize, Madam Mayor. The one thing that I did, I was on council the first time when we allowed the mayor to have a phone. So it's been a long time since that has come around, and obviously things have changed. And I totally understand that, but I totally agree with that. The mayor should have a cell phone no matter what, apart from your personal device. And if councillors want to get one through the city, that's fine. If council wants to get one on their own, that'll work. That's fine too, as long as there's that flexibility.
Thank you. I hate that city cell phone, and I carry 3 cell phones so I wish I could drop one. That would be great. Other comments? Councillor Haggard.
In year 3 of our last council term, we hired a consultant to do a comparison of salaries and benefits, and I believe a cell phone was one option that was looked at as a potential benefit, and it was decided that it wasn't standard practice with other municipalities, if I remember correctly, and that's why we do not have cell phones. This council does not have cell phones.
I don't remember that being a part of it, but I do know that when in the term before, in, I don't know, probably 2017, there was an income tax change. Council and mayor remuneration used to be 1/3 tax-free or something like that, and the federal government got rid of that. At that point in time, we did a remuneration review, and one of the suggestions was to start covering more of councillors' personal expenses, or not personal expenses, but expenses related that they incur personally for doing the job. And one of the specific recommendations was that councillors are required to use their personal cell phones, even to have their personal cell phone numbers listed on our business cards, and yet there's no reimbursement for that. So I don't remember it being included in our last remuneration review. I could be wrong, but I do remember it being specifically recommended to add that as an option for councillors in the prior remuneration review of when I was on council.
I was actually quite surprised when we became on council and we did not get phones, because I always had a phone specific for work before that. However, I've just made it my personal phone work, and I don't give out my cell phone number, but I list my home phone number.
Thank you. Okay, Mike?
Through the chair, we're also looking at an option of bring your own phone for city employees as well. And if council wishes, we could also include that for council. So then if you are using your own device, it lays out that it has to have some FOIPable content and stuff, and you can be remunerated for that.
Thank you for adding that. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Fox. That is part of and Councillor Patola sent that copy to me as well, part of the 2013 is bring your own device. So I believe that's already partially there. So again, that's great for me. I'm just, less cost, I guess. That's what it is. I'm not trying to be as frugal, but I mean, if I can put it within my budget with what the citizens pay me, I'm more than willing to do it. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Seeing no more comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council direct administration to review the current policy entitled electronic device use and provide recommendations for updating of the policy to correspond with current technologies, delineating the permitted and prohibited uses and any such further issues of importance with respect to electronic devices issued to city councillors by the city.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Thank you. Any comments? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And, originally, in my submission of this motion, I had said if required. So I'm not entirely sure that this is required with regards to upcoming budgeting and financial planning, but I would move that council direct administration to include funds within the financial plan for provision of electronic devices to city council in amount to be advised by city administration.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. Item number 5 is COFI, the BC Council of Forest Industries Annual Convention, and to authorize council registration. I'm wondering if our policy says, I think we typically send mayor and 1 councillor. I believe that's what I'm not sure if that's by policy or if it's just our practice, but for discussion on if councillors are available and if council sees value in continuing to send people.
That is also the same time as AVICC in Victoria.
Yeah, we're just going to double check the dates with AVICC. AVICC is the 12th to 14th, and this is the 10th to 12th, so it should be doable potentially to send people. I've attended this conference a number of times, and I have found it to be generally valuable, certainly. It is similar to the truck loggers convention that we also attend. It has a lot of good industry representatives. It is there's a lot of opportunity for government discussion as well, and yeah, typically we do send mayor and 1 councillor. Is there anyone who is available after AVICC to attend this? Councillor Douglas. Councillor Douglas is available? Okay, or sorry, before AVICC, yeah. Thank you. Okay. I may be able to attend, but I have to just confirm. So maybe if we start with just a motion that will authorize sending up to 2 of us, and then we can circle back and confirm availability.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy. Seconded by Councillor Dame. Councillor
It does say that there is 1 complimentary registration.
That's right. I always forget that. Yes, thank you. Okay, on the motion to authorize sending 2 people, 1 of them complimentary for the registration. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And item number 6, we have the official community plan engagement strategy for policy development. Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just wait for the PowerPoint to come up. But so we are coming before council and the community to talk about the next phase of our official community plan, and it's an engagement strategy for the development phase portion of our project. And so we are asking council to consider support for the engagement strategy that's attached to your agenda. Council may recall that we have been working on this for some time. We have the vision for the OCP and touchstones, which are guiding principles to help guide the policy development for our OCP. And again, the engagement strategy is specific towards this portion of the work. We did come back to council. We did pause the engagement in May of 2023 for several factors. We came back to council in this fall with an update and indicating that we would bring this engagement strategy forward to you for your consideration. So that's kind of where we are now. Some fundamental goals around this, of course, are to ensure that participation reflects the diversity of Port Alberni and the various aspects of the community, to make engagement easy to do, for participants to feel safe and respected as part of this process, so that everybody can feel confident that they can provide their information and feedback and opinions, and that we be transparent and provide information on this process as we go through this project. So just an overview of the roles in our official community plan. City Council is the legislative decision maker. So eventually this official community plan will be presented to the community and council as a bylaw, and council will be required to go through readings, a formal public hearing, and adopt the official community plan as a bylaw. In regards with our Indigenous communities, we have initial meetings scheduled with both of our Alberni Valley First Nations, and to discuss how they would like to be engaged in the official community plan. The project management and the project team, we're responsible for the management of this overall project, the research, the engagement, the reporting, and to the community, and reporting to council and updates to council. Part of this engagement strategy is a community representative team that council will have recalled that we had rolled out. So we've reconfirmed the various groups that would be part of that, and they're there to try and give us some more community advice and insights and feedback as we go through this, and to help get the word out amongst the community. As previously directed by council, we have added an additional seniors representative, and they happen to be part of the Sunshine Club. We also have been successful in getting a young adult, 18 to 25, to be part of the community representative team. And then, of course, very importantly is, of course, the general community and community organizations, and for them to be involved throughout the process to provide their ideas and feedback. Very important that we have equitable engagement in this. Often there are groups and individuals that have a lot more capacity and know-how and are more familiar with these kinds of process. So, and we welcome them, but they're often easy to engage, and sometimes we have to work harder to ensure that we engage other segments of our population. Some of those segments that we have identified thus far that have been, we've had some gaps, and that we'll work hard to ensure that we get them to participate, is school-age children, grade 4 to 12, for instance. And we did see whether we could potentially have youth at that category be part of the community representative team. There seemed to be some concern about being involved in that, so we've been working with a couple teachers within that, and we will go to and have events in the schools. And we're hoping to both do at the high school and elementary school. As I did indicate, we do have a young adult who has agreed to be on the CRT, but we'll also work to try and do something at North Island College to further capture that. Also mentioned that we will work directly with our First Nations and other organizations to ensure that we get Indigenous residents' feedback. And then other visible minorities and that are out there will work hard with social sector practitioners, our community action team, and then even to do potentially individual interviews if we can on people who aren't normally comfortable coming out to larger events or those types of things. Before you, and it's on page 6 of your engagement strategy, is a bit of a engagement tactics and timeline about how we're hoping to get this work done through to the end. So we're proposing 3 phases, and the first major phase is our OCP ideas, essentially. The next one would be the official community plan development of policy work, and then the drafting of the draft bylaw itself. So during this first stage, which if council endorses the engagement strategy tonight, we would undertake immediately. We would be looking to do this work between now and April. It would be a substantial amount of background work. We would have a significant amount of public engagement beginning in February with both online engagement and in-person engagement. We actually have 2 in-person events scheduled for February 14th and 15th. And really a lot of what this early work will be is engaging the community in 2 fundamental things that will help guide the balance of the official community plan document, and that's potential growth scenarios. How does the city want to grow over the next 20 years? What might that look like? And of course, climate action. And what is the level of support in this community? And how do we set objectives in our OCP? So those will be 2 fundamental things that we'll be engaging with the public, asking for them to help really guide what the document's going to look like. We'll be informing the public in a variety of different ways, social media posts. We've actually created a YouTube video about what is an OCP, why should you care about it, what's it mean to you. We will have a series of ads in the AV News, media releases, of course our Let's Connect page, as well as other background document work that we will continue throughout the process to help inform us and the community. The second stage would be really then taking some of those outcomes and work with the community, First Nations, and understanding the policies and priorities that have to make up the OCP itself, and really work on drafting those documents. So we anticipate that work through May through to August. And then really the next third phase is, and there's a lot of community input as we go through this process, but eventually getting to where we actually start drafting the full OCP document. And then that would be, we would have to come back to the community on a number of things to ensure that we've heard, that this is what we heard. Is this what you told us? Are there any gaps? Is there any further work we need to do prior to it becoming to council as a bylaw? So still in its draft form. City Council will be invited to attend all workshops and public events, and there will be a number of milestones, we're calling them, where we'll need to come back to ask council and for support on a direction that we've heard. So, we will say, okay, based on what the community has told us, First Nations, some of our technical studies, best practice, this is what we've heard. Here's a direction that we're going in, and we ensure that we come back to council to be sure that you are comfortable in that direction before we move forward. Similar to that, at each of those milestones, we will prepare a what we heard report. Will be developed and will be presented to council again before moving on to the next phase. Those reports will be posted on our Let's Connect page as well as other ways so that the community is understanding, here's what we've heard thus far and here's the direction that we're moving towards. If council does support the engagement strategy tonight, we will this week start publicizing some of the engagement strategies that are coming forward. We have prepared OCP touchstone snapshots that will be published, and they really are intended to, on a number of those touchstones topics, to provide what are the trends, data, definition, some legislative requirements about this to help educate the community prior to engaging with them. And again, we will announce the various events, both the way people can communicate online and in person, and again, through the various ways to communicate and get people excited about the OCP project and this policy engagement. And as I indicated before, the next steps would be, in the most immediate ones, is we begin online engagement essentially February 8th to 19th, and then we have 2 scheduled in-person engagements. And again, primarily to engage the community on growth scenarios and climate action, which are really 2 key fundamental things about how to guide this official community plan project going forward. And then staff is, of course, asking for council support of the attached engagement strategy. And both myself and Kelly Leonard from Frank Planning is available online to potentially answer any questions that council has.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you for the work that you guys have done on this to date, to you and Kelly as well, of course. I think you've done a really great job of capturing council's initial feedback, and yeah, really pleased with the engagement strategy personally, and love the concept of really intentionally going into schools, but happy to see we have added to the CRT as well. Comments? Councillor Haggard.
Not a question, but a comment. I just want to say that the one thing I'm most proud of during this process is the consultation with the youth in our community, because this is going to be their community in a few more years. And I'm very happy that you're continuing with that down that road. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Councillor Batola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also just wanted to add my congratulations and pride that this is an excellent strategy. I'm sure there will be hiccups along the way, but I think this could also form a foundation for other types of engagement in other areas rather than just the OCP, and I think it's a great step forward for the city.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy.
I'd like to make a motion, Madam Mayor. Move that council support the engagement strategy for the policy development phase of the official community plan review and update dated December 2023, prepared by Frank Planning Collaborative.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no additional comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. And we will move on to question period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of council on decisions or recommendations made during the course of this meeting. A maximum of 3 questions per speaker will be permitted. Would anybody like to ask questions today? Mr. Anderson.
First, I wanted just to add my condolences to Helen's family and friends. It was tragic news, and we've had our differences, but she should be acknowledged for her contributions to the system. So it was very sad news. I'm wondering if I could have a copy. My request is for a copy of the letter that was sent to Councillor Patola regarding the Palestinian Israel Hamas issue there and the decision made. If I could have a copy of that. I mean, no, it was made public here, and I would just personally like to have a hard copy of that. It's not my intentions to make it public or use it in any way like that. It's for my own information. And I think Mayor Minions can back me up on that. She provided some documentation to me at the end of last year, and I promised that I would not divulge it at the time, and I fulfilled that promise. It was hard, but I fulfilled it. And so I'm asking that I could have a copy of that document. And if I did want to, I would do it through the writer of the letter.
Thank you. Councillor Patola, and then Councillor Mealy have comments.
Thank you, Mayor Minions. Yes, Mr. Anderson, I believe that all that material is a matter of public record. It was attached to the agenda for the December meeting, the December 11th meeting, I believe. So there was quite a large package attached to that, and the delegation came in person and made representations at that time. So there was no letter to myself. It was the letter to City Council.
Well, that's the letter I'm requesting.
Yeah, maybe CAO could comment on if there has been a letter sent yet. That's what you're after, right? And then
Yes,
if
that's
possible,
right.
to get a copy of that letter.
Yeah. I was at that meeting when they spoke up, and I had some concerns that I chose not to get involved in at that time. It's public knowledge. It's been raised at the meeting here.
Yes, we're just looking for clarity, I think, on
Okay,
whether or not
fair
a
enough.
formal letter has been sent. So go ahead,
Through the
CAO.
chair, yes, we have sent a letter.
Okay, and I'm sure we can provide that. Okay, we'll make that available to you, Mr.
Okay,
Anderson.
thank you very much. Appreciate that. My scribbling. I was glad to hear that the two councillors bring up the issue about the COW meetings and the lack of input from the public. So I'm looking forward to that finally being addressed. It's been a long time between meetings, and it's still very restricted as to what a public input can be given at those meetings. I'm just asking you that if you cannot somewhere in the near future schedule a COW meeting specifically to address how well this is working since the changes were made and what changes could be made to improve it. And I tried to do it at a meeting. You were not chair at the time, Mayor Minions. And I didn't get a chance to give some ideas and suggestions. I think my comment was, I think it would bring a lot more people on board and to accept the COW meetings as a chance to give input. It isn't working. So I'm asking you that you consider creating a COW meeting specifically to deal with reviewing the changes that were made in the early part of this year. Would you be prepared to do that? I'm trying to put this into questions.
Thank you. I think that would be a discussion of council, absolutely. I think that whenever we make a change, we want to first give it a bit of time of having that change implemented before we review it. But I think it would be normal practice for us to have a time set to review that. I would personally think we need a few more months of our meetings happening as they're happening, but I certainly have no issue with bringing that to maybe a late spring committee of the whole for a discussion about if it's working or not.
Late spring.
Yeah, I think the changes have been in effect maybe for like 4 months, roughly. That's what
lot
I'm
more
just
than 4
guessing
months.
from my, I don't know, we'll look later and we'll get a date on that, but I don't think that we're anywhere near a year at this point. So I would think typically we would want to see a year of something in action before we really have a meaningful discussion about whether it's working or not.
Yeah. On the issue that was brought up about the pension shortfalls and charges being picked up by, it's usually the employees and the employer. I could have answered that question. I'm quite familiar with that whole process, but I can't speak on these issues because we're not allowed to speak on issues like this. But you are responsible. That's as much as I'll say on that. The regional district, a number of months ago, the Municipal Pension Retirees Association MPRA made a presentation regarding reinitiating Seniors Advisory Committee. We weren't successful at that time, but we were referred to Councillor Haggard and the regional district. Has the regional district released let's say in the last year any information or discussions has been taken that's been released regarding seniors issues?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, no. Are you aware of any other organization that within the valley, and there is a few, that's released information pertaining to seniors issues? There's been a lot of things in different newspapers provincially and federally about issues, but has anything been brought up in Alberni Valley regarding specifically seniors issues? Are you aware of right now?
A new housing building just opened for seniors, of course. Rainbow Gardens, a 55-plus building. So there's been general work aimed at seniors specifically. We have an accessibility committee as well, working with the regional district that does have a portion of the focus specifically on accessibility challenges for seniors. So some of the scope of work is going to be specifically focused on seniors. That's being led through the regional district. Those are the only two off the top of my mind that I can think of, but I would imagine there are more. Those are just the two that come to mind.
Yeah, a lot of issues that you can read up on and stuff, but I don't, just hoping you don't cut me off too soon. My last comment is we still believe the MPRA, which I'm still at this point a member of the executive there for at least another 2-3 months, and they're a good organization. If there is one that's formed, I would hope that at least as a delegate from them. And it's an issue that it would take months and months to organize and be productive, including other people in the valleys. And there's a dire need for it. And that's evident even in the questions I asked today, and that there's not too much being said about, other than sidewalks are down, you need the crosswalks and stuff like that. There's a whole lot of other things that can be looked into with the cooperation of other organizations. And so I'm asking you to please, again, would you consider reinstating that committee with a member of the, because we would want to do it, I would like to see it do, I can't talk for the MPRA right now, I'd like to see it done with the cooperation of the city, and therefore a delegate from council on that committee too. And I'm asking that you reconsider.
Thank you. So council, at any time, any member of council could make a motion to strike a new committee or to get a report on what resources would be required to strike a new committee. The original seniors committee was not resourced, and so that was a challenge. Often the city starts a committee, well, not often, a few times. Specifically at that point in time, we started 4 committees, that was 2 councils ago, and we didn't resource any of them, and that leads to a lot of meeting, a lot of talking, and very little action as a result. I think that's not the best way to move forward, so reinstating that committee as it was, I think my personal opinion would be it would not be the best use of anyone's time or resources. That said, if council wanted to explore starting a seniors committee, that could be looked at any point in time with a motion or notice of motion. If your group, the Municipal Pension Retirees Association, I'm just saying that because you keep saying the acronym in case people don't know what you're talking about, or any other group could form a committee and request a council liaison, and I'm sure council would be happy to provide a liaison. So there's a number of options for sure, and certainly council could take action, or you're welcome to request a member of council attend.
It's always nice to have the cooperation and the council being active, and seniors are a big part of our public here. If any council member is interested in hearing my personal views is what that committee would do, and first in their initial meeting and subsequent meetings, it's a lengthy process to set up a really good working committee. And it doesn't have to be a monthly meeting. There's a lot of work in between that has to be done to make it productive. So if anyone's interested, I'd like to sit down with a coffee or something and give them an idea of what I think, and maybe the MPRA, and I'd appreciate if that could happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for additional information, our council changes were made in June, with our first meeting having been conducted under the new bylaw in July. So I think to have a review possibly in late spring or early summer would be appropriate when we've had approximately a year of the new processes in place. Come on forward.
Thank you. Mike Hughes here on behalf of the Alberni Valley Transition Town Society. 2044, Alberni Valley, a focus on the SOMAS lands and Bird Street proposals. This is a panel discussion we'll be having on January 17th at Char's Landing, just across the road. And Dustin Dame has kindly agreed to be a member of the panel, and we're still assembling all the components of that, but I'm here to extend the invitation to every member of council and mayor and senior staff, indeed, to engage in an open discussion at this point in time as you relaunch the official community plan review. Some might question the timing of it, but we wanted to be right out of the gate because we want to play a supportive role in reinvigorating the process. And so I guess a question for you to ponder is, how do we view, or how does the Port Alberni resident come to a better understanding of these two very important projects through the OCP lens, or through the lens of the OCP review? And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but we'd love to see you there.
Thank you, Mike. We just heard about your event earlier today, and I know myself and Councillor Haggard are away at a conference, so we won't be able to attend. And I would just caution that the Bird Street redevelopment, Bird Beaver Ponds potential redevelopment does have an active application with the City of Port Alberni, so there won't be a lot of information or question answering that Councillor Dame is able to do as a result. We have to be cautious of comments, and certainly have to be able to move into a possible public hearing in an unbiased way. But that said, I thank you for organizing the event. And certainly to Transition Town for leading, because as we do move through the OCP process, the more that we can hear from the public, either in structured events organized by other groups or events organized by our staff, I think the better informed we'll be. So I do know that we have a couple members of staff planning to attend as well. And then hopefully we'll be able to get a bit of a summary of the event, so that those of us who are not able to be there are able to still hear some of the information.
Yes, we plan to
get that
record the
input.
event.
Great.
For
thank
general
you.
viewing.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for coming today. Appreciate it. I guess my major question would be is, we're going to have a process, and we just started our process and have a timeline, and that's the city's process, but how is the information, other than just a videotape, and how are we, how is the community as a whole, through our OCP process, going to get the information from your private event? I guess, because things that may come up at your event may not be on part of the public record, and I think that's important that it comes and is part of the public record for everyone in the community to see, not just I'm not saying a select group, but there's only a certain amount of people that can fit in there. So, and again, if I can't make it as well, I'd like to see the summary or something through officially presented to the official community plan process.
Indeed, we will be doing that. And of course, Dustin is our council liaison, so we can work through him on that as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
the question. Any other members of the public like to ask a question today? Okay, Joseph.
Mayor and Council, my name's Joseph, and I just have a quick question regarding correspondence for information. On there is the letter from the Pacific Rim School District that a public consultation for the purpose of the sale of 3816 Anderson. So there's a letter there. It's just, again, a letter that they're going to bring this to the public for the possibility of sale. On the letter, it states that there's going to be public consultation from a period of December 22nd, 23 till January 31st of 2024 regarding the proposed sale of the property located at 3816 Anderson, which is just off of Redford, I believe. Just a block in, if that. And on here, what it's asking for is considering the city, of course, as a stakeholder. So it's asking for your input regarding that as a stakeholder. It says your feedback is crucial to that decision. And I'm just curious how the city responds to that. You've got an OCP plan coming up, a future growth within the city of Port Alberni, hopefully lots of young families coming back. And I'm just curious how you respond to that. Like, is it just one person sits down and says, yeah, it's fine with us, go ahead, sell it? Or do you look at it at a deeper level and say, well, maybe the school could repurpose that for a period of time and keep it within the possibility of reusing as a school, whatever. I don't know all that's going on with the school. I'll pop in and talk to them a little bit. But how does the city make a decision based on looking long-term with the sale of a school that's now then would, I take it, be put on the public market and sold to whoever and then developed into whatever it is. So then that area's possibility for school or repurposed as a community center or something within the city is lost. So I'd like to know how the city looks at that, and then how is that decision made? You're only a stakeholder. They're only asking for your input. It says if you don't respond by a certain date, they'll assume you're okay with it. So can you please tell me how that's kind of how the city approaches that and how they respond and what their answer might be?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank
So
you.
process-wise, this comes to council as information, and if council chooses to pull that information out and direct that we take a position, then this or any future date before that time passes would be the way to do that. So when it came to council as correspondence for information, was not selected to take a negative position on, then as it says in the letter, they assume that we're fine with it. That specific building is and one of the old, I think they were called project schools at that time. It's quite a small building. Certainly with our OCP underway, and that building would be subject to zoning that I would imagine would be institutional or something. We know that whatever future purchaser of that building, if it's not going to be a school, there would be a rezoning and a public process to go through. So we would have a say and an input in what that would look like, unless it was going to continue to be a school or something that fit within that zoning. So typically when things like this come to us, we look at them, we read the letter, we drive by if we're not familiar with it, and we consider to ourselves if it's something we need to take a stand on. In this case, I would say that by council not selecting it for further discussion, that we're fine with the school district deeming it excess and moving through the process of disposing of it, whatever that looks like. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, not seeing any other members of the public with questions. Would somebody like to move adjournment? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by, Oh, we have an online, okay, thank you. We have an online question. Sarah, go ahead. Charlene, can you hear us now? Charlene, if you can hear us and you want to ask your question, you can go ahead anytime. We'll just give it one more minute in case. Okay. Okay. Well, Charlene, you're welcome to ask your question at our next meeting. Looking like you can't get through right now. Okay. With that, would somebody like to move adjournment? So moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. We already did that, I guess, on the motion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.